put a smile on your face when you're moving from place to place. Good morning, good morning, morning.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, and welcome back to the Tobago Updates Morning Show, coming to you live from the Port Mall in Scarborough, Tobago. Now, some of you may know her as the secretary that does so much with so little. Her innovative mind and creativity always makes her stand out. So yes, viewers, this morning we will be chatting with Mrs. Nathisha Charles-Pantin, Secretary for the Division of Food Security, Natural Resources, the Environment and Sustainable Development. Pleasant morning to you, Mrs. Pantin. How are you doing?
Good morning, Mr. Trim. Good morning, my constituents of Bagatelle, Bacalet, Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago.
Okay, nice. So we are in an era where a lot of small island states, especially in the Caribbean, we are aiming to strengthen our food security, and it's through bodies such as TADCO we can achieve this. So can we get some insight into the creation of TADCO?
Okay, when you say the creation of TADCO, so we have to be careful, because, you know, a motion was brought up against me, you know, with some frivolous accusations. But the history of TADCO, you know, 3 companies, they were dissolved, and TADCO was formed. And of course they failed in all their efforts, significant losses, millions of dollars in losses. So TADCO was the result of, you know, they just hired everybody, you know, put everybody under one company all at the same time. So, you know, we had a lot of issues, but TADCO was really designed to drive the agribusiness sector. Yeah, it's supposed to be the marketing arm of the division, because we understand in Tobago we have to hold the hands of our farm entrepreneurs. Correct. And when I got into office, I impressed upon the technical teams that we have to treat the division and its companies as a science and a business. We have to manage in that way. And with that understanding, we then could create something extraordinary. If you go anywhere in the world and you hear about buying something from Tobago, it carries a lot of weight, because people look at Tobago as being clean, green, serene, you know, products coming from Tobago is sort of natural and all of that. And having to sit down and listen to the minority council. Now just imagine this. You are in North America, you are in the UK, any part of the world, and you hear the minority saying things like, all the chicken that Tobagonians have rotten, and all the fish that they have rotten. What kind of marketing are you doing for your own people in Tobago when we're actually trying to make an effort to bring the science into what they are doing? And everything that he's saying there, it's frivolous, it's ridiculous. I want the farm entrepreneurs to continue trying. I know that it would take some time to perfect what you are doing, because you have certain standards that you have to meet. And of course, TADCO, as soon as we launched out, we tried to all the demonstration units, all the training that TADCO would have started and engaged all the stakeholders that were interested. That is why we train them. That's why we train people in specialty cuts in the meat and all these things. It is to bring them up to standard. Yeah. And I wish that the Minority Council would stop politicizing food, because Tobagonians, when they put all the effort into their craft, it is sad to know that a few persons, just for political reasons, want to stop their production.
Okay,
yeah,
Secretary, interesting. That was a very informative response. And from your response, I can gather that when you have to promote Tobago and on a regional and international level, we could only imagine the machinery behind that. So can you give our viewers and listeners some insight into the staffing at TADCO?
The staffing at TADCO, now, currently, there are about 42 on the compound, and 8 on board the Capital of Paradise. Yeah, So the assertion on the motion that there are just a few security officers and cleaners, and that is ridiculous as well. You cannot run an enterprise as massive as TADCO without having staff. And staff must be trained. There are particular jobs that you must have qualifications for. But I will tell you something. When you don't have all the information and you see the creativity coming out from some staff members, you know, you tend to want more for them. You want to push them, of course. Any person with a heart would want to support that person. But if you don't have the relevant qualifications, especially given the current political climate, it is difficult to make an argument for your case. It is difficult for you to hold a position, for example, being an accountant, without having the prerequisite, qualifications for that particular job. So you cannot take someone who don't have something that, a specific job would require, that type of qualification. And, say, okay, a pilot don't need to have, let's try her. She's good at helping people, deliver babies, but she has no credit. I mean, there are some things that you definitely need the qualifications for. But I'll tell you something. There are positions that people who do not possess qualifications, but you have experience that you can get. So we can do things the right way. Nothing is wrong with that, right? So I don't want people to look at the restructuring as a way of punishing anyone, because there will be opportunities that you do not have to commit fraud or anything to compromise not only yourself, but people that have the responsibility over you. Yeah? And, we could do things the right way. And I'll tell you something, when we assume office, of course, people say we're green, we don't have no experience and all of that. Okay, so you know that. So it would take some time to understand everything. You have a lot of laws, policies, and in some cases, policies don't exist. So you have to put policies in place. So as you go along, you depend on the advice of people. Some people, they come with advice, and then later on you find out the advice wasn't credible. So you have to go back again and go back to the drawing board. And we understand that. I understand that the last administration would have had those challenges as well. But don't be deceptive just to satisfy your political interests. We are talking about the livelihoods of people. We are talking about people's families and all of that. And we don't want to put people in a position where they end up, in a ticklish situation that they can't defend themselves. Yeah? And of course, we have to protect ourselves given the current political climate.
All right, Secretary. And it's a really sad thing, especially in the Caribbean region, when we look at when politicians, sometimes the information they put out into the public, it's very inaccurate. And it has a damaging effect on the economy, on the image of the island. So it's really important for us as Tobagonians to have that information. And I want to thank you for the clarity that we are getting this morning. Now, from the motion, there was something in the air about some missing documents. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Okay. So to allow for continuity of some projects, a report came to me that a lot of the contracts for consultants and contractors, that they didn't find them anywhere on the compound. And that, you can't really follow up, right? In the case where you had buildings and the scope was one way, and then when you visited the site, you didn't see what the scope had. And then, people demanding millions of dollars, $6.7 million. And then a next shell without a ceiling and roof and just some pillars, and they wanting almost $1 million. I mean, when you have these requests, then you have to treat with it, in a systematic way. because you still have to pay people for whatever they tried, because they try something, right? But at the same time, you want to be able to account for what how you're spending the money, yeah? And there's nothing to start with. That was the difficulty. Even in the case where they claim that, they have equipment to make flour and what's happening, you don't have all the parts. And then when you ask the consultants and the contractors, you're supposed to have a copy. Well, bring it in. They're not bringing it. So where are these documents? Are we supposed to just start from what? Thin air? And it's unfair. It's really unfair. But the board, they have a lot of work to do. They have to come up with solutions to a lot of the issues. But I don't want Tobagonians to be afraid of trying. And even though I pointed out that the 3 companies failed, I understand that when you start a company, you would have the challenges of understanding, how to form a business. As a matter of fact, forming a business and operating like a business, it is not something that a lot of young people, they understand the process. And you have to sort of guide them, put systems in place to guide them. I'll make real life mention of a scenario that I know of, even when I supported the other side. And yes, I need to say that. I remember after winning, when I assumed the office, someone asked me why I crossed the floor. I never crossed the floor. That term is for when people actually become elected and then they decide to I never crossed the floor, but I would have supported. And I have intimate knowledge of this case where back in the then administration, someone got over $1 million to operate a pig farm.
Yes.
And they asked me to visit because the pig production, that whole enterprise failed. And I said to them, I need you to be open and honest with me, right? I am not on a witch hunt or anything. I actually want to assist, yeah? So I need to understand the reasons for failure. And they said to me, lack of technical support. So they didn't get the science down. And anybody into pig production, I mean, from young, my family brought me into raising animals, so I could tell you. And I got married into a family that raise animals currently. So I can tell you, when you're raising pigs, the ratio is important, yeah? And if you don't have the ratios down, right, you end up spending too much money and the enterprise will fail. So that is why I'm stressing that you must have the science down. And when they mention lack of technical support, right, that is why I have been pushing so that we could continue developing the demonstration centers, that we have stations all across Tobago, because these are the stations that would provide the science, so that we could provide the technical support, so that these enterprises, these private these farm entrepreneurs, that they would not fail.
Okay, so
and if we have failing companies under the Tobago House of Assembly, how can we now assist people who are failing as well? So we have to try. And that is why I'm boasting about the efforts of the Capital of Paradise and all the other projects that we're doing. Because if we could get the science right and the business right, then we could provide the technical support for the stakeholders.
Yes, Secretary. And when you look at food, especially food and agriculture, it's an area where you have to be very technical. You have to get the science on, because at the end of the day, these are products that people are going to consume. So it will include trial and error. It will include failure at some point. It would include going back to the drawing board. But some people from the outside, when they look at it, they will just assume, okay, that's probably a 1, 2, 3 ABC fixed problem, when it's not. It takes a lot of technical thinking, a lot of work. But I heard you keep making mention to the Capital of Paradise. It's a really vibrant name. It's very interesting. So can we hear a bit more about what the Capital of Paradise is all about and what it has been doing?
Well, I'm happy that you have asked that. So the time accounted for the capital of paradise. There was a time that nobody knew anything about it. And it is only now that you can hear about who the captain, who is the current captain. You see all the vessel crew members online. You're getting a readout of how much fish they catch and how much revenue and how much they make. And very often people will quarrel and say, oh, they're not catering for all the fuel and the this and the that. So that is why I quoted revenue after all the expenses, to show Tobagonians that you have the capability. Do not let people make you think that everything that Tobagonians can do, it will fail. This was a pilot project, to see if the capital of paradise could become a lucrative, something lucrative. And you should be boasting as Tobagonians that you have a totally Tobagonian crew led by a Tobagonian captain that could actually bring this, this sort of success for Tobago. This is not me boasting here, yeah, right? I mean, sometimes I go out on the vessel, just a short ride, and I want to throw. So this is not me boasting. I am boasting about the skills of Tobagonians and your sons on board the capital of paradise, right? But we didn't know where it was all this time. Nobody knew. And even in, providing some corporate social responsibility. When you go to the temporary facility at Scarborough, sometimes it would dock and provide hot meals, fresh fish, to the Tobagonian public. That's and visitors, because we got some visitors, I think from Germany the last time. They came and sat down with me and ate broth. And that is that is the kind of thing we want to start. We provide fish to the school feeding program, to the fish processors, right? Random people can come and purchase fish. So we have to start encouraging each other, right? And as I'm trying to say, I don't want people to be afraid of failure, right? But failure for 10 and 15 and 20 years, we cannot continue along the same road, right? So we are looking at different initiatives and trying to see how lucrative it can become. And if something isn't lucrative, then we note why, and then we try to do better. So this is not Mrs. Pantin sitting here and say she's a perfect woman and she understands everything. That is ridiculous. I get advice. I depend on my technical officers in situations where I do not know something, right? I co-opt it, right? And that is what I am happy for, that we're able to work as a team. And if we can work as a team in everything, right? Sometimes I'm misguided, and I wonder why would somebody give me that type of advice when I get something. I mean, because everybody had their own agenda. Yes. And when I don't adhere to somebody begging me for something because they're just satisfying their interest, then all of a sudden the chicken rotten and they're going in the public and talk and say the chicken just to affect everybody, the 60 farm entrepreneurs, because I didn't give you something. That is wickedness.
Secretary, and I love how you made mention about us as Tobagonians having pride in the capital of paradise.
Yes.
Because we are in this era, even in 2024, people are still of the belief that Tobagonians are so dependent on Trinidad and we can't do anything without the support from Trinidad. So it's amazing to hear that we have a Tobago base and Tobago owned project that is thriving.
But it's deliberate. Sorry to cut you across. It is deliberate. I know I said hush your mouth yesterday, but I'm calming down a little now. That is deliberate, because if they can keep us in perpetual dependency, right, then the 4 million that I have to manage after I pay wages and everything else, that is all I would get, and I will get less, because they will say, look, there is no reason to increase the allocation for food security in Tobago, because everything Tobago own and they're running currently will fail. So that is why 500 million could be spent on agriculture and all the initiatives in Trinidad. And by the way, Trinidadians, I love you all, because I have family in Trinidad as well. So nothing is wrong with that size of investment. But $4 million for food security in Tobago is ridiculous. And when they speak about moving around money, why the chief secretary don't move around money? Move it around from where? We already have shortfalls in all the different divisions, and everybody consider their portfolio to be significant and important. When somebody drop down in a patrol, blaming Mr. James, so what? Move it from the division that works and send it to food security?
Wow, Secretary. And I think it is for these reasons we start to understand why in the autonomy bill we are demanding a minimum of 6.8%.
Definitely send the money to Tobago so that we can feed ourselves.
Okay, Secretary, I really understand. But allow me to switch the direction of this interview a bit. You made mention to Trinidad, and sometimes when I'm walking through UWI campus, I will see these students in a circle playing all fours. Sometimes I will try to get in, sometimes I will watch, because it is a stress reliever. It's something that everybody wants to take a part of. And I understand that you have also been initiating an all fours competition.
Yes.
So tell us a bit more about that.
Okay, so I'm not a good fisher. I don't want to say fisher woman. I'm not part of the fisher folk community. But one thing I know how to do is play all fours. And my father, I mean, in those days, you know, my father used to teach at the trade school, and I believe he was a mason at, you know, under the division of education at one time. And sometimes the money just wasn't enough. And in his socializing with the community, he became part of an all-fours club. And often when when you know, he returned, he would always call, you know, the kids together and you know, teach us all fours, you know. And I love the energy, because, you know, it's like daddy to daughter sort of, you know, transfer of knowledge. And that is why I can say that all fours always pays for itself. So TADCO had no need to pay for the all fours event. As a matter of fact, the reason why the food hub was converted into a space so that you can accommodate all types of activities, including agriculture, because as you see, for World Food Day, you had several different types of activities. You had people could come and buy flowers during the horticulture show. We had the World Food Day there because of the problems with the giant African snail. So it is a multi-use facility. And all types of vendors can be accommodated at that site. Yeah? So instead of focusing on one stakeholder, we have several people in this space with skills, right? That they don't want to always depend on the government for something, and they want to establish themselves. So we host a lot of events at the food hub, and TADCO made a lot of money from that all fours tournament. So TADCO was paid to host that day.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's really
and
amazing.
Talking about a division with no money, you have to come up with ways to make money. So we have to transform all these assets that we have into money-making spaces. And that was the reason why when we hosted the Scarborough Botanic Christmas Glitz, that $10 and $15 at the door and $20, that is no money at all. Compared to what the vendors made that night.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. And, you know, when I started the interview, I would have made mention about your innovation and your creativity, because to make something out of when you don't have nothing, some people will compare your job to trying to make an ice block from water that's spilled on the floor, and you do it so well. And you do it so well. And sticking on your innovative tendencies, I'm of the understanding that there are new companies and new committees that we can expect to be uprising soon. So tell us, give us the insights, because I know a lot of people are excited to hear what next this innovative secretary has in store for us.
Well, I'll tell you something. I mentioned earlier that we have a lot of assets, and to the point where sometimes I walk into a room, for example, and I'm just afraid I have to run back because of the amount of wood ants and vermin. So now you're going to see us doing a cleanup campaign, because these stations, some of them, you know, they really need, you know, the Bible says cleanliness is next to godliness, close to godliness. Yeah. So that is why you're going to see we're ramping up that sort of activity. But some of the things, you know, you need to accomplish, you need to draw talents from different places, including within the division. So you have a lot of persons that willing to build this island into the greatest little island on the planet. And no matter where you come from, right, you have a chance to serve. And I'm going to continue doing that, eh? Yeah. So you're going to hear about a lot of these committees and I'm going to get bashed for it. But that's fine. Because the outcome is something extraordinary. Right? Look at what people experience at the Botanical Garden.
Yes, Secretary. And I'm getting to that because, well, to wrap up, because, you know, we're almost out of time.
Yes, sorry.
Sticking on your innovative, especially when it comes to the Botanic Gardens, we would have seen the movie night and the Christmas glitz. And somebody told me, a little birdie told me that we can expect something for Valentine's Day.
Yes, actually, we have the team planning. And when I say a team, we're going to draw people from under tourism, of course, led by our Tobago Reforestation program, that, you know, they are now stationed at the Botanical Gardens. They came up with this theme. It's a love thing. So within the month of February, I know after people don't wind down low, it's followed by love, yeah?
Yes.
That's Valentine's Day.
Yes.
So I don't want to tell you too much, but dining in the gardens would be one aspect. So if you want to come out with your significant other, you would be able to dine in the gardens for Valentine's. That's really nice. But it's going to have a twist.
Okay.
So I'm not going to tell you that twist. Yeah.
But we look forward to that twist, and hopefully you will announce the twist right here on Tobago Update. So we look forward to that. So, Secretary, I want to thank you for joining us this morning. It was a very innovative, as usual, informative interview. I wish you the best in all your endeavors. So, viewers, that was Mrs. Nathisha Charles-Pantin, also known as the creative and innovative secretary that does so much with so little. So, viewers, we still have a bit more interviews packed for you, so stay tuned. Just remember to share the live, and we'll be right back.